and welcome our recruitment lead, Elnoosh. It's time to talk about the one part that we get most questions of, application process.
Indeed.
No pressure.
Exactly. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I look forward to give you a presentation about the application process, and I hope that I will answer many of the questions that have been raised in the chat. So my name is Elnoosh Farhoudfar. I work as the project lead of VITP, where I mainly support the recruiters that are involved and the responsible recruiters that support the hiring managers in the process. So during this segment, I will go through the recruitment process, the timeline, and give you some tips and recommendations on your application. So first of all, I want to pinpoint the last application date for VITP, which is 11th of February, and we really have a strict timeline in the recruitment process. So I wish you to note this date and don't wait to the final day with applying. I know that maybe you want to do some editing and some final touches, but you never know about the technical stuffs, and maybe you will end up there being stressed when you're not able to send in your application. And I hope you will not end up there, of course, but that might be. So if you can, try to eliminate that risk and send in your application as soon as possible. Uh, Also, we have written the time plan for the recruitment process in the job ad already about the different steps, when they are conducted. So please take a look at it and try to write down the key dates for it. We have in total 34 positions in this round of VITP, which means that it is 34 positions that needs to be filled with one candidate each. And to keep an efficient and smooth process, we really need to proceed after each step, and we cannot consider individual cases or so. So do what you can to be proactive in your application. A little bit about the application then. When you send in your application, we ask you to attach your CV and cover letter. And I'm sure that you have a lot of interesting experience, that you went to different type of trainings and courses. Maybe you did some kind of change in your education. And of course, that's interesting for us to see, but try to keep it relevant for the position that you're applying for, to make it easier for the recruiter to see as well that, okay, this is the experience that applies for the position that the person has applied for. And I wish you to attach the application in PDF format if it's possible. Of course, we can accept other formats as well, but for our system, it's more optimal to have it in a PDF format. And also be clear with the education that you have and if it's still ongoing or if it's finalized. And I know that the question have been raised in the chat, so it's okay if it's still ongoing, as long as it's finalized before the program starts. Also, in the cover letter, I would advise you to motivate why you think you're suitable for a particular role and why the position you applied for is interesting for you. So you can use the motivation letter or cover letter to elaborate a bit on that and make it more specific. And also, it is fine for you to apply for multiple positions in the program if you wish and you believe that you have the relevant experience for multiple positions. But then please adjust your application for each position that you're applying for, to make it relevant and to pinpoint why you believe that you have that competence to apply for the position. In the application form, you will fill in some screening questions about your preferred location if the position can be filled on multiple locations. if you're authorized to work in the country of your preference, and also if you yeah, I forgot about the third question. Yeah, it's about the gender, if you want to answer that as well. I know there's a lot of questions regarding visa and sponsorship, so I will clarify that as well. If you are the preferred candidate for a position and local requirements are fulfilled, depending on the country and the location of the position, we are able to support in applying for work permits, but we don't offer any relocation packages or any support like that. So depending on the position, we might be able to support you in the visa process and work permit process. You will also be asked to give your consent applying for the particular position for us to be able to handle your application due to GDPR. And it's two different boxes. The first box is related to the position that you have applied for specifically. And the second box is if you give your consent for us to consider your application for other positions within Vattenfall. And it could be either within the program or outside of the program. So reflect a little bit and see if you would be open for that and for us to consider you at Vattenfall in general. Proceeding to the selection evaluation. The selection period will start after the final application date, which is 11th of February. And one part of the selection step will be that you're invited to do an online test, which includes a personality test and an ability test. And you will be provided more information about this later on during the process and by the recruiter if you're invited. Since we have many applicants, once again, which we are very happy about, we also have this strict timeline, which means that we cannot consider individual cases in general or extend the test period. And we need to keep the timeline that is set, which is between 12th of February until 15th of February at night, which means that 23.59 is the final time to do it. Great. Yeah, another tip is for you to look into your spam folder in case that the invite has been sent there by any chance, or yeah, you never know. As I mentioned in the beginning, technical issues or things like this. So keep yourself up to date around this period of time and see if anything ended up there. The interview then. For the interviews, we use competency-based methodology, which is a more structured way of conducting the interviews. So we wish you to give us examples from different situations where you have been using specific personal competencies that are relevant for the position. And it could be either from your studies or from work experience. In the interview, a recruiter will join together with the hiring manager, and the majority of the interviews are conducted virtually via Teams. The process in general, the recruitment process, is via Teams, but it might apply, like specific requirements might apply on several positions, but then you will be informed about that. So you could think in general that it is via Teams. And it will be around 90 minutes, the first interview. We will talk more about the positions, the expectations of it, and you will have the chance to ask any question that you feel is unanswered. Then a second interview, usually with the manager of the manager, a grandparent, as you call it at Vattenfall, is conducted. And it could also be that you will meet the team or conduct a case. But once again, you will be informed about that eventually in the process, depending on your application. And of course, we are eager about hearing why you applied for the trainee position and your visions being at Vattenfall. And talking about the superpowers that you mentioned before, it is more about what makes you stand out and what will your contribution be and what makes you unique. So try to reflect a little bit on that to be able to present it in an interview. When the final candidate is decided, the pre-employment screening will start before we're able to provide you with a contract. For the countries that it applies, an ID check will be done, and it might be conducted during the first interview already, where you will verify your identity. Then a verification of the education could be applicable depending on the country and business-specific guidelines. We have the reference check, and in Sweden we also have a drug test that is mandatory to be conducted for all of our positions. Some of our positions are security classified since Vattenfall is a part of Sweden's critical infrastructure, which means that if you are the final candidate for that position, you will go through a security process. And what that means, you will be informed about and all the steps that applies. Then after these have been conducted, you can be provided with the actual contract. Sorry for rushing it, but I saw that time is flying, so I hope that your questions have been answered in this batch. But I just want to also kindly ask you to, if you feel like you have a question related to your specific application, mind the responsible recruiter for that position, which is the contact details is in the job ad, and reach out to them and ask them about your questions. And then we also have this FAQ, which you could take a look at. Okay, so my colleagues, are there any questions that have not been answered?
Well, there are many questions, and to all our participants, I would remind you all that many of the questions you're asking are actually answered in the FAQ document and page. But there are some questions I think are important that we asked to you. So the first one was about the multiple location positions.
Right.
First question was, how do you actually tell that you want to be located in a specific city when you apply?
So one of the screening questions for this multiple location position is that what is your preferred location? Where you can just tell then which location that is the preferred one. And I advise you to reflect and think, okay, what is most suitable for me?
Can you choose multiple cities or is it just one?
You can choose multiple cities, but I would recommend you to reflect and see what is actually the preferred one, because you could be located on one location today, current location, but you are open or you wish to be located at another one. So you would be able to choose between multiple locations.
Okay, great. Another question, we do have a lot of questions regarding the language. So once and for all, how important is the language that we mentioned in the job ad? Is it a deal breaker or not?
Depending on the position, if it's like what we write in the job ads are the requirements. So for a particular position, it could be a requirement to have the local language. English is applicable on all positions, I would say. So when it comes to the application, I would advise you to apply with an English application. But then if any other local languages are required as well, you could write your cover letter in that language instead as well. So then you have both languages. So depending on the position, I would say on the language part. But then you need to be realistic as well. When we ask for this language skills, would you feel comfortable to speak that language in the position? Or do you feel like, okay, I'm still learning and I'm not comfortable with that?
Yeah, thank you. And final question, since I know soon it's time for Yasit to take over. But there's a lot of questions regarding the previous work experience.
Hmm?
So I know you already covered that, but maybe you could just specify a bit more. What do
Sure.
we actually calculate as the work experience? And what if you have a gap year, but you have been, for example, traveling and not working per se?
Indeed. So I would say that like if you graduated some years ago and then you've been traveling around, we will count it from we don't count that as work experience after graduation. Internships doesn't count as work experience. PhD doesn't count as work experience for this program. So only actual work experience.
Great. So you graduate, you sign a contract, you start working. That's work
Exactly.
experience.
Indeed.
Okay.
And maybe you have done this already and then you choose to change path and start to a new education, then we will count from that education instead. So we don't mind any work experience before you actually graduated.
Okay, thank you. And I see there's a lot of questions about online test. Maybe you can
Hmm?
have a minute to spare and tell a bit more about that.
Sure. So it contains two parts, a cognitive part and the personality part. I will not go into too much details about the setup for it, but the online test will be sent out the day after the final application date, so on the 12th of February. You will receive this. And as mentioned before, keep track of your spam filter and folder as well. So we, after this have been conducted, we evaluate the test results and scores in relation to the application, education, and other requirements that applies for the traineeships. Not more than a years of work experience, relevant education, and if there are any other hard skills that applies on the position itself.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and as I said, many of the questions are answered in the FAQ page, but we of course are trying our hardest to also answer your questions in the chat.